This is a review of a book written by Tracy called The Psychology of Selling. So I read the book and I wanted to make a YouTube video of what I thought was important points in the book and what I got out of the book. So please like this video and subscribe if you find any value. So let me go ahead and discuss several points in the book that I think were important. Not only in selling per se, like a salesperson, but I think everybody is a salesman regardless of their job title. So these principles generally will apply to anyone in various different environments. It could be at your work, it could be at home, or it could be anywhere actually. So in selling, there's 7 key areas. These key areas are like the digit in a telephone number. So what he means by is that they must be executed in sequence. So you must dial each of them in sequence if you want to get through in closing the sale. So these 7 keys are prospecting, building rapport, identifying needs, presenting, answering objections, closing the sale, and getting resale and referral. So prospecting means you just go out into the world and look for people that are interested in what you're selling. Building rapport means that after you have made the contact, you need to make the buyer more at ease. And identifying the needs. So identifying needs would be, well, what are the buyer's interest in purchasing your product or service? And presenting is the actual item or product that you're selling. And then answering objections would be if they have any reservation about going through the sale or purchasing. And closing the sale would be the order that they give you. And then getting resale and referral means that they help you in someone else that might be interested in the services that you are selling. So there are reasons why so many people fail in sales, and one of the important reasons that they fail is because they're not persistent long enough and work hard enough to get few sales under their belt. So the reason most people fail in sales is because they don't persist long enough. So they give up before they get any results. And another reason that they fail is because they are afraid of rejections. So they may not be knocking on as many doors as they should in order to get the sales, because it's all about the numbers. So if you knock on enough doors, chances are some of them will be successful in buying your product or service. So the first area where creativity is important is prospecting. Your success is in prospecting largely determines your income, and your ability to find more and better prospect is only limited by your imagination. Second area where creativity is essential is uncovering buyers' motives. So prospecting is, like I said, finding out new opportunities. And then second area that you will need to focus on is uncovering why buyers are hesitant to buy your product, or what is the reason for them buying your product or service. So creative prospecting is essential to your success. It begins with thorough planning and analysis and starts with 3 questions. What are the 5 to 10 most attractive features of your product? What specific need of your prospective customer does your product satisfy? And what does your company offer that other companies do not offer? Its area is excellence. So this is something that I didn't know, but I was kind of surprised. So what Tracy says is that customers do not buy features. They only buy benefits. They do not buy product or services. They buy solution to their problems. They are not concerned with what goes into your product. They're only concerned about what comes out of them. So I had some idea about what he's talking about, but this really puts it in black and white terms. So instead of discussing all the features about the product and how wonderful it is, I think you need to focus on what the prospective buyer is interested in, which is the outcome, which is the result. How is it going to make his life better? How is it going to help him generate more money? Or whatever the reasons that they're buying your product for. So focus on that. Don't focus on features, because people are only interested in what helps them. So there are 4 keys to strategic selling that you must master if you want to join top 10% of money makers in your field. These are specialization, differentiation, segmentation, and concentration. So I think what he's trying to say here is that you don't want to be a generic salesman. So instead of selling commodities, you need to sell products, services that are unique, that not everyone is selling. So that's when the specialization comes. And the differentiation is, how are you differentiating between yourself and your fellow salesmen that you're competing against? So let's say there's one buyer and you and another competitor are selling the same product to them. How are you differentiating between you and the other guy? So you need to have some unique points if they buy it from you than if they bought it from someone else. It could be customer service. It could be anything that makes your product have higher value than the competing seller's product. And segmentation and concentration. So segmentation is which part of the market that you're targeting, and then concentration is you want to focus on that part of the market. So in some cases, so one prospect may be worth 100 times the value of another prospect. The basic rule is to always fish for the whales, not minnows. Remember, if you catch 1,000 minnows, all you have is a bucket full of minnows. But if you catch one whale, it can sink your entire ship. I think what he's trying to say here is that you should always try to target big sales instead of small sales. So you might get small deals, but still they're small deals. So if you get a big purchase order, then and you would make same amount of effort if you were targeting minnows or whales. So maybe you want to have a mixed bag, target a couple of minnows, and also have like targeting big buyers, meaning whales. So what has to happen before your prospect will buy your product? Well, often a person will only buy a product or try out a company or service when she has received recommendation from someone she trusts. So generally speaking, people do not buy product from strangers. So people trust people that people know them. So that's an important thing to remember, because when you go up and trying to sell your product and they don't know you, you're going to have a hard time making a sale until you can make a personal connection. In other words, people like to buy product from people that they know, not from strangers. Here is never talk about your product or price on the phone unless you can actually make and conclude the sale without seeing the prospect personally. So I think what he's trying to say here is that if you give prices and discuss your product over the phone, it may cheapen the value of your product, and then that may make it harder to sell your product. So I'm not that's true in all the cases, but I think what he's trying to say is if you value your product or service, then there's a likely chance that the buyer will also value your product or service. So do that. First thing I decided was that I had to be sure that I was speaking to the right person before I made any attempt to set up an appointment. So here, you need to know your audience. So in a company, you're making a sale. You might be talking to a front desk clerk. You might be talking to a salesperson. You might be talking to an owner, or you might be talking to director of sales. So depending on the person you're talking to, you need to pitch your product accordingly. Because if you're pitching your product to a desk clerk, I don't think it's going to help, because he's not in a position to make those type of choices. So for example, if you're talking to an owner, then you want to say how much your product will increase the sales and the bottom line, because that's what owner is interested in. If you're talking to a salesperson, you want to talk as how he can increase his sales. Not necessarily the bottom line, but also the bottom line would increase accordingly. But you want to pitch your product according to their role in the company. So your opening question should trigger the response. What is it? Or really, how do you do that? If it doesn't generate such a response, then you need to rework the question. If it's not breaking the prospect's preoccupation and getting his complete attention, you must rework the question until it's done. So I think what he's trying to say here is that you want to get the buyer's attention. So you need to be strategic about the questions that you ask or opening statement you make. So here is excuses that the buyer may make. So sometimes the busy prospect will say, could you send me something in the mail? If you send the prospect something in the mail, chances are very high that he will lose it, forget about it, or decide not to see or talk to you at all. So sending things in the mail is usually a complete waste of time and money unless you are selling from a distance. So I think what he's trying to say here is that it is better to make a in-person contact than doing it over the phone or mail, because it helps the buyer be more serious about purchasing the product. So never expect people to call you back, no matter how honest or intelligent they sound. You as a salesperson must always maintain the initiative until you get the first face-to-face appointment. So I think this is where the persistency comes in place, because if you're expecting the buyer to call you, chances are it's not going to happen. Chances are pretty low, actually close to zero. So even if the buyer says that he's going to make a call and he wants to make a call, there's a good chance that he wouldn't, because that takes extra effort on his part. And as you know, people do not like to make extra effort if someone can else make the effort for them. And he has very little reason to call you, even though it might benefit him. So always make the initiative. Don't sit around waiting for a call, because like they say, I'll call you, don't call me. Yeah. So remember that phrase. It never happens. They never call. So 90% of the first impression you make on a prospect will be determined by your clothing. So wear appropriate clothes. So if it's a business type environment, wear business type clothes. If it's some kind of artistic or some kind of like music or band or some kind of a arts, and dress appropriately depending on what the situation is. Friendship factor. One of the most notable truths in sales, which I have already addressed briefly, is that person will not buy from you until he is convinced that you are his friend and acting in his best interest. So another word of saying is that people only buy stuff from people that they like. They don't like to buy stuff from people that they don't like. So maybe don't like might be a strong word to use, but the buyer has to trust you that you're their friend and you're there to help him. So if he feels that, then the chances of making a sale is much greater than if he thinks that you're here just to make a sale and just leave. And no one likes that. No one. The first unspoken question a customer asks when he meets you for the first time is, do you care about me? If you do not answer yes in first minute or two, customer will quietly lose interest in doing business with you. So it goes back to they have to feel like that they care about you and they have the best interest at heart. Otherwise, why would they buy something from you? You can think of it